talk about this as well. Trump's True Social post speaking about Greenland again as if it's a national security threat and talking about the Golden Dome. The guy's just off his rocker, and that continues here as he's talking about similar aspects on Air Force One. We got kind of, I don't know if you'd call this a conspiracy theory, but there was this video that I ran across on Instagram that kind of gives a good, I guess, theory on why Greenland is so important, or, seems to be so important to the United States as of right now. And it's, it doesn't have to do with the techno state or whatever the fuck that was, and Elon's grandfather, at least from what I've been told. But I just kind of wanted to dive into that a little bit. We also have the right wingers are going in on Dan Bongino, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to let Dan Bongino just slide back into his podcast role like nothing ever happened. Right? Like he didn't tell everybody that he was going to release these files, and he'd go in there and wring necks and he'd crack backs and he'd do whatever it took to get this information out there. And quite clearly, the only thing that he actually did with his time in the FBI is help redact the Epstein files. So this is, again, our boy over there, Nate at Valhalla, and, again, America First, Nick Fuentes viewer, going after Dan Bongino. And I have a feeling that this is going to be the sentiment kind of felt broadly on the right. They're just not going to be like, okay, yeah, we'll hop right back into your podcast audience without actually acknowledging the fact that you had just had a prime spot in the FBI in a prime role and being able to actually, seek some justice, find some people accountable, but you totally gave that up for one reason or another. We got that to dive into. And then obviously this is tough. Anybody, I'm sure you guys have been talking about it. I'm sure you've seen it on social media. If not, we'll be discussing the Sasha Riley recordings here, if you want to call them. I believe there are 6 different recordings that I listened to with some really horrendous and disturbing and just vile shit on them. But it's at this point, it's kind of difficult for me to know kind of how to, I guess, as long as we put the overwhelming allegedlys and unconfirmed at this point, just until we can get more of that, determination, more, whether it be, I know people were talking about if it's military, fucking documents or whatever it may be that kind of corroborate the story to some degree or to whatever extent, then, we'll be happy to report it here. But I think we kind of have to be careful to some extent on how we report it. I mean, that's just me. I just, I don't want to be the one out there kind of throwing caution to the wind and just, kind of steamrolling through this. But yeah, we are going to dive into, I have a couple clips that I posted on Blue Sky, a couple, just kind of like updates and timestamps on it, in case people don't want to listen to it, in which different people were mentioned, Lindsey Graham, Clarence Thomas, describing of stories of Donald Trump wanting to kill somebody at a party, but, they didn't want him to kill somebody, so they gave him puppies to kill instead. And then one by one, Donald Trump either strangled them or snapped their necks or drowned them. I mean, I'm telling you, this is the stuff that's in this recording. And, from what I've listened to, and again, I listened to the recordings, all of them, it seems like this guy has been through some absolutely deeply traumatic stuff in his life. I mean, just the fact that his father was willing to do and include other people and allow them to do things to his son the way that it was allowed to happen is just, it's beyond comprehension. It really is. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg as it pertains to these recordings. So again, it's going to be different. A lot of it, I don't know if you even can play as far as YouTube's guidelines and stuff like that. It's that bad. It really is that bad. So we'll go through as much as we possibly can. Like I said, I might have to rely on the Blue Sky, where I just kind of, like I said, 31 minutes in, you hear this, 9 minutes in, you hear this, just to kind of give everybody an idea without having to drag everybody through it. Again, some people do want to listen to it. Some people have listened to it. Some people adamantly do not ever want to hear it, but also want to stay involved and kind of stay up to speed on what's going on and taking place. But they don't want to be put through that traumatic circumstance. They don't want to hear the absolute fucking degradation of humanity that goes on at these parties, or that these individuals like Trump and Epstein and the rest of these fucking sickos were involved in. Right. So I appreciate you guys. Hit that like button. And again, we'll get into that. But first, let's dive into a couple of these, quick clips that we can fly through. And then we'll get on to, again, the more important aspects of that. And also the Greenland. We'll talk about the Iran protests and what Donald Trump's planning there. I mean, as you're talking about thousands and thousands of people being brutally murdered in the streets, you have the United States president, actively, telling them to continue to protest. right? Where it's not his fucking place. If they want to, absolutely it's going to continue. But if they feel that the regime is like murdering too many of them and they want to come approach it a different way, like it's not up to the United States president to be like, okay, stay in the streets, keep getting murdered by the fucking regime, and we'll come help you at some point. We'll come help you at some point, right? I mean, not to even think about what that entails and what that would mean as far as, insecurity in that region, insecurity on the world stage, instability on the world stage. If we put boots on the ground, and I mean, the thought of it, boots on the ground in Greenland and a war with NATO. You'd think I was fucking just popped out of the grave and was like, it took a couple hits of LSD, right? A couple fucking tabs of ecstasy. Like you'd think I was tripping if you heard that. If you weren't paying attention, I was like, hey, we're gonna invade Greenland, and if we invade, we're gonna be at war with NATO. Not to mention the partnerships and the allied ships. What is it? Sorry. Not to mention the partnerships and the allied ships between the nations there, right? Denmark, Finland, like all those people, they're not just going to sit by and let that fucking take place. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to dive into this, though, because this was a funny story, obviously, that people were pointing out as it pertains to Donald Trump's trip to the Ford factory. I'm sure you've probably seen this go by as well on your social media feed, and you've probably given a thumbs up, and you've probably given a little like golf clap in your house to this guy for what he did. But let's just play this. This is just a quick clip from TMZ, and this is obviously when Donald Trump had to flip off one of the Ford workers for pointing out that he's a pedophile protector. Again, one of the better moments. And again, this trip did not go how Donald Trump thought it was going to go. And then you put together the lies, from the Ford factory themselves, from the Ford CEO himself, and we look at the layoffs, we look at the plant closings, we look at going from EV to gas, but and then you'll hear again in the ensuing interview, Donald Trump talk about how awesome the economy is going to be, while also saying that it's going to be a lot of fucking robots, as we all knew was coming, right? So, all right, let's check this clip out. This is a real quick clip of Donald Trump getting called a pedophile protector and then flipping off the Ford worker. Let's jump into it. You see his little baby finger? I think that's the funniest part about it. His little baby finger. Watch. It's like when a little chubby baby gives you the finger, like when you teach a little fucking like your little nephew or your little niece or something, a little chubby baby, how to give the middle finger. Like that's what happens. Like it's just like can't even get it up all the way. You know what I mean? It doesn't have really the strength to get it up all the way. You can't really distinguish that between the rest of the fingers. One more time. I'm sorry. One more time. Give me one more time. I want to catch the finger. Can I catch it? Watch. It is. I still don't know if that's the right finger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still not sure that's the correct finger. It almost looks like he's holding up the ring finger, right? He's an absolute moron. An absolute fucking moron. Jesus Christ. But again, he went on to show that. And the problem is, if you look at this, the problem that I really have with this whole clip is if you look at the Ford worker, well, I'm assuming is a Ford worker in some extent, in some capacity, if not a Secret Service agent. I don't know why he'd be so upset if he was a Secret Service agent, though. But take a look at this guy. This guy here, right here. You know what I mean? Watch how upset he gets, and he starts pointing out the guy on the ground. And again, I don't know if he's a Ford exec or to me, that's what he looks like. Doesn't look much like a Secret Service person in that aspect. But take a look at his reaction to it. Right here, this guy up here. Watch him. See him pointing him out? You can see he's angry. You can see he's pissed off. Wouldn't you be more pissed off that you have to stand next to an actual pedophile protector, somebody listed in the Epstein files? I'm sorry, right? Been on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, owns one of Jeffrey Epstein's jet, was best friends with him for over 20 years, said they both like him. Wouldn't that be the disgusting part? Why are you so upset about one of your workers who actually used his First Amendment right to actually spit out the truth that everybody in that plant should be saying, that everybody in that plant should be pissed off about? And you got that fucking, again, I'm speculating as to whether or not he's a Ford employee, but I would assume him to be, the way he kind of, reacted to it and the way he kind of pointed down to the guy, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get you. Like, that's what I got out of his reaction. Watch. Donald Trump says, fuck you twice. And then you can see this guy, right? His immediate reaction pointed out the guy just before the camera panned over. And then you can see he's like grilling the guy. And then if you look here, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys knew this already, but the guy that did speak out, the guy that did say pedophile protector was suspended. But again, seems to be coming out on top, like we suspected would happen, because this is a Guardian article saying that suspended Michigan auto worker who heckled Trump gets outpouring of donations, which you love to fucking see. You love to see, and that's gonna be like, how what's comparable? Okay, the woman that called the I forget if it was a teen or an adult, but they called the African American the N-word, and then they ended up getting the GoFundMe raised for them, and raised something. What was it, like $1 million or something crazy, something stupid, right? Like how upset and pissed off that makes people on the left, and people that actually can see racism and bigotry, and then people being rewarded for that, and how like frustrated that should make you. Like, that's kind of the opposite effect here. Like, I can picture Donald Trump reading this, or somebody being like, all right, Donald, we did tell you that the worker got suspended, but unfortunately he's now got $17 million through a GoFundMe because the entire fucking world just donated to his bank account. Like, that would be perfect. So it says here, TJ Sabula raises tens of thousands after he reportedly called Trump a pedophile protector during the Ford plant tour. Tens of thousands of tens of thousands of dollars have been raised for an auto worker at Ford plant in Michigan who was suspended without pay after heckling Donald Trump. I mean, that's just ridiculous that this company is not only, doing this whole propaganda tour for Donald Trump again as they're closing down factories or switching from EV, to mainly robotic use, and not, they can't find people to use to get the jobs that are open to begin with. And again, that's more of that'll be in the interview that we'll look at. But it says TJ Sabula is said to have called the president a pedophile protector. He absolutely did. And then he's absolutely not apologetic about it either. He has no shame, which is even better in this whole aspect. As he toured the automotive giant's River Rouge complex on Tuesday, Trump appeared to give Sabula the middle finger. He tried to, at least, according to a video published by Celebrity News and gossip site TMZ, which claimed that Trump also yelled obscenities prior to making the gesture. I think that's pretty clear to see by his reaction what he said in that fucking clip. I mean, it's not only did he say it once, but I'm pretty sure he said it twice at least. In an interview with the Washington Post, Sabula said, quote, as far as calling him out, he had, quote, definitely no regrets whatsoever, which is exactly what you want to see. Chef's kiss on that one. But he said he was concerned about his job security after the incident, claiming he had been targeted for political retribution for embarrassing Trump in front of his friends. I don't feel as though fate looks upon you often. When it does, you better be ready to seize the opportunity, Sabula said, added in an interview. After today, I think I did that. So basically saying, when else are you going to get the chance? Right? When else are you going to get the opportunity to, in like a quiet fucking factory with that many people watching, where you could actually yell something out, it would echo loud enough, he's going to hear it, you get an immediate reaction, cameras are there, like he hit that spotlight right on the money, right? He knew it. A GoFundMe was created on behalf of that to help cover the cost of income from the suspension. So as of Wednesday morning, it had raised more than $70,000 with purported donors, including the band Dropkick Murphys, Ken Casey, who we just had on the show. So please go check out our conversation with Ken Casey. That would be amazing. So big respects out to the Dropkick Murphys, if indeed that is the case, which I have no reason to doubt. That is absolutely something that they would be involved in and support. I mean, things just like that are right up their alley. So TJ is a father of 2 young children, a husband, and is a proud United Auto worker, local 600 line worker. Again, Dropkick Murphys and union support and blue collar, it just goes hand in hand. Another reason why I wouldn't dispute that. Funds donated will support TJ and his family to cover expenses during the time of uncertainty that GoFundMe campaign cites. Ford did not immediately respond to requests for comment. White House Communications Director Stephen Chung didn't confirm whether Trump flashed his middle finger, but argued in a statement to The Guardian that the president had given a quote, appropriate and unambiguous response when a lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage. Oh, I wish they asked him to clarify what was said. That would have been even better, to hear Stephen Chung have to repeat pedophile protector back to The Guardian. Trump had been touring the Ford complex, yada, yada, yada. I think we know the rest on that story.
The U.S. must take Greenland, whatever the cost. Opinion contributor 3 days ago. Fantastic. This is irresponsible platforming. This is nonsense. Why are you putting this on your platform? The White House is speaking loudly about Greenland, but volume should not be mistaken for madness. Oh, no, it's not absurd, folks. It's not. The idea that the president of the United States wants to take over Greenland, that's not. We shouldn't be mistaking the loudness of this for madness. No, this is a perfectly sane idea to have in our heads, okay? American people, this is perfectly normal. This is a normal thought process. This is not madness at all. Why would it be? Why would it be madness? He'll change after a buyout, if I remember correctly. They used to host Crystal Ball and some other progressive mainstream liberals. That probably tracks, honestly. This isn't a sudden lapse into imperial fantasy. No, of course not. No. It's power politics. Yeah, power politics into imperial fantasy. Plain and unsentimental, dressed in modern language, but driven by old truths. Oh, old truths. The old truth being that if we can do something, we should do something. Might makes right. That's what this is. There was a kind of mass walkout at the time of the takeover. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Geography still governs fate. What is this? This is fascist rhetoric. Distance can still protect or imperil nations. Ice still melts, routes still open, and rivals still move. Greenland, it sits at the center of it all, a vast slab of territory that dominates the map not by population but by consequence. Set aside the outrage and pearl clutching. Oh. Now, see, we've got this all wrong, folks. We're the ones who are pearl clutchers. Got it. Understood. And the case becomes clear, seen through a realist lens. This is insanity. The kind John Mearsheimer describes, power is never polite. Again, this is fascist rhetoric. This is might makes right. Nations do not glide through history on goodwill. They compete, maneuver, and block rivals wherever they can. America didn't invent this contest, but has played it for a century, shaping trade routes, locking down strategic choke points, and denying rivals room to expand. Exiting now would not end the game; it would simply forfeit the advantage. So, yeah, we have to deploy the European version of the Monroe Doctrine, I guess. Greenland matters because the Arctic matters. Melting ice has turned what once was a frozen buffer into a contested corridor. Shipping lanes are emerging, subsea cables snake across the ocean floor, missile paths shorten, surveillance gaps narrowed. Russia knows this, China knows this. Both are investing heavily in Arctic presence, infrastructure, and influence. This has nothing to do with any of that at all. China knows this, both are investing heavily in the Arctic presence, infrastructure, and influence. The U.S. can either treat Greenland as a distant curiosity or as what it actually is, a forward position in a region that will define future power balances. This argument falls apart. This argument falls apart really quickly because Greenland already allows us broad use of military bases and real estate there. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. Greenland, as part of an independent autonomous zone, semi-autonomous zones of the Danes, who are a part of NATO, already allowed the United States military a broad access. They already allowed them broad access. So this idea that we have to have Greenland, that we have to take over Greenland because China and Russia, is nonsense. We have military bases there. This is why the talk of acquiring it refuses to die. It refuses to die because Trump keeps talking about it. Stephen Miller keeps talking about it. The only people that are talking about it are these fascist freaks. That's it. Under Trump, it has resurfaced less from recklessness than from bluntness. He says aloud what others prefer to bury in briefings. Yeah, sure. Okay. Previous administrations whispered the same concerns behind closed doors and then settled for half measures and cosmetic compromises. Trump simply said the quiet part out loud. Of course, that's usually what Trump sycophants always say, right? Just rename NATO to NADA. Ah, I like that. North Atlantic Defense Alliance. The U.S. is not needed. Agreed. Yeah, Trump just says it like it is. He just says the quiet parts out loud with his usual lack of decorum. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Constantly threatening allies with invasions, with military invasions, is just lack of decorum. Okay, when Trump orders war crimes to happen in the Caribbean, where he's just killing people and firing at ships, that's just his usual lack of decorum. Okay, when he illegally kidnaps the head of state of a foreign nation, okay, under nonsense pretenses that we all saw coming. In fact, I think I've talked about this already a couple of times, but we literally went over this in one of our episodes here on This Space. The idea that he was trying to name weapons of fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction was the propaganda pretense to go and do military action. All of this is illegal. This isn't lack of decorum and surplus of disruption. This is illegal. These are war crimes. And now he's threatening allies. Yeah, exactly. People are dying because of lack of decorum, okay? That's true. Frontline Assembly's victim of a criminal has a point. The American dream is the whole world's nightmare. Yeah, yes. I see that. The preferred path is obvious and needs no justification. Yeah. Allies recoiled, but in cold political terms, offense is secondary to advantage. No. No. The preferred path is obvious and needs no justification. Buying Greenland is better than bullying it. But they're not going to sell. We talked about this yesterday. Greenland is not going to sell. Greenland has no interest in being a part of the United States. Why would they? I mean, seriously, who in the world would want to be a part of the United States right now? Nobody. Especially an autonomous country like Greenland. That's like asking the Scots if they want to be a part of America and lose their health care and lose their social safety nets to the extent that they have them. Okay? No one wants to be a part of America. They've said so repeatedly. A negotiated transfer with guarantees for Greenlanders and compensation for Denmark would be cleaner, cheaper, and far less destabilizing than a military move. War in the Arctic would be absurd, expensive, and counterproductive. But that's where it's going. But you're making the argument that this is like the 1984 stuff. Like, you can't simultaneously say that this idea is absurd and expensive and counterproductive, which it is, and on the same breath say that we need Greenland at all cost. This is literally 1984 style language being used here, and normies read this. Okay, it doesn't matter that it says opinion at the beginning and very obvious. It doesn't matter that in not only here but here it says that these are just opinions. Normies just read this as part of the news. Okay? The Hill and Politico have done a lot in attempting to normalize bizarre political scenarios. That's true, but this is just the fact that this is the reason why this kind of raises the alarm bells a little bit more is because this is very plausible. Like, this is very plausible that Trump does something this insane. that Trump does something this absurd. Even floating the idea of force is less about intent than leverage. No, he's serious about this. This is serious. He's really wanting to float the idea of an invasion. This isn't like a power move, okay? This is, he really believes that is a plausible or possible scenario. It is a reminder that the U.S. takes the matter seriously, not a rehearsal for invasion. It is. Make no mistake about it, folks. If you're across the pond, so to speak, and you're looking at this in horror, as you should, understand that this is serious. Even if nothing happens at all, I would say that the Europeans across the pond should probably be fortifying Greenland at this point. Regardless if nothing happens, okay? Regardless if the military generals stop Trump in his tracks at the last second and say no, or we're going to remove you from power. I think that Europe would be naive if they weren't starting to do preparations and fortifying Greenland against the United States. In fact, I would say that they should start closing and kicking out all U.S. forces out of Greenland at this point. Search the Assist the U.S. Safe program, or Security Action for Europe, is a financial initiative designed to provide up to $150 billion in loans to EU member states for urgent defense investments. Now would be that time. And if nothing happens, then nothing happens. Because, yeah, this would be serious. And the fact that this is even on the table, the fact that Trump is talking about this, and there was rumors about Trump trying to ask his generals of the joint JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command or whatever, to draft the plans, and they kind of push back on that. The fact that all of this is even happening is absurd. It's absurd. Critics insist Greenland's future is not Washington's to decide because obviously they're an autonomous zone. Formally, they're right, and that's it. Like, there's no formally nothing. Formally is nothing. What he's saying strategically, however, the statement is a comforting nonsense. So what he's saying is that we shouldn't care about the sovereignty of Greenland. We should not care about what Greenlanders think about their future, about how they want to govern themselves. That's what he's saying. Next week, J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Little Marco announced plans to meet with Denmark officials. As Greenland residents say, they hope a diplomatic solution can be reached. The diplomatic solution here would be the United States to F off. That would be the diplomatic solution. And in fact, again, I would say the United States should probably be kicked out of Greenland. All their bases closed. And that's it. Goodbye. Get them out of there. Panama might get hit too. Yes. Which is concerning because the dual citizenship that I happen to have is in Costa Rica. So I'm not... The situation is kind of... it's not great because if we start doing stuff further in South and Central America, that kind of puts the situation kind of... yeah. Panama, Colombia... Mexico are all in the crosshairs. The current crop of European leaders are very poor when it comes to Trump. Appeasement is their only stance. Yeah, and it's sad because like you would think the European leaders would have some kind of sense of history of what happened when a maniac dictator wants to start taking over the world. And what appeasement did. That's right, Cuba also. In a world of rising rivalry, no great power allows vital terrain to drift into adversarial hands out of courtesy. No one is saying that this is happening, right? Like there's no, this is fantasy, okay? This is the manufacturing of consent here, of saying, hey, if we don't do this, then China's gonna do this. But there's no evidence that China's doing this at all. There's no like deal behind closed doors of China and Greenland saying, hey, can we use your resources? Hey, can we have access to your passage? That's not happening, okay? This is fabricated. This is happening in the author's mind, okay? This is not the real world, okay? Sovereignty, this is literally like fascist justification. This is exactly fascist logic here. Sovereignty is sacred until security is threatened. Whose security is threatened, okay? No, there's no, this is fabrication, okay? This is fantasy. This is fascist imperialistic fantasy, okay? That's what's happening here. Sovereignty is sacred until security is threatened, then it becomes negotiable. No, it's not, actually. This is not negotiable. We do not have a right to invade Greenland, okay? When they don't want to be a part of the United States. And this fear-mongering that it only exists in the author's head about China or Russia does not, it just doesn't exist. It's the security of the millionaire's net worth. True. The CIA has been destabilizing countries and forcing regime change for decades with no oversight. Yeah, but there's always been some kind of, like, nod. You know, there's always been some kind of, like, oh, yeah, we absolutely want to fund this. This coup in South America. Yeah, like, there's always been some kind of, like, understanding of, like, yeah, I mean, we don't want to, like, do this outright. We kind of want to let the CIA do what the CIA does. What happens between the CIA and South America is between them and God. But they still have a it's some kind of, like, nod and a wink, right? It doesn't just happen unilaterally. And it's also not, like, specifically at the direction of the president without anything else. This has been one of the more explicitly, not that the United States has a great track record of democracy, but this has been one of the most explicitly and outward authoritarian regimes that the United States has had. They literally, and that's saying a lot given our track record of democracy, ? Louisiana Purchase, 1803 acquisition. At least that was a purchase. We're not purchasing anything. We're saying we either you give it to us the easy way or military is on the table. This is not like the Louisiana Purchase at all, even though we could argue that some of that might have been shenanigans, but whatever. It's milliardaires, not millionaires, but anyhow, I guess it could be worse, like Zeta Joules being a trillion joules, where the American scale says it's sextillion joules. Yeah, I mean, that was me mispronouncing it, I apologize. There's talk about buying Greenland. Yeah, but they don't want to buy, they don't want to sell. Like, that's the thing. They don't want to sell. This isn't like, this isn't a conversation that they're having. They don't want to sell. They want to keep their autonomy. So there's only one option here. This isn't cynicism, but the hard ledger of history. No, this is absurdity. It's what this is. The U.S. bought Louisiana not out of generosity, but to deny France control of the Mississippi. It backed Panama's break from Colombia to secure a canal it deemed vital. Yeah, okay. It purchased Alaska to keep Russia away from its doorstep. Sure, bud. Britain took Gibraltar for the same reason. Then what happened there? Position beats principle when survival is involved. States talk reverently about borders right up until the borders threaten them. When security tightens, ideals are revised. Yeah, but there's no one's threatening the United States at all. This isn't happening. This whole this whole premise is based on nonsense. European nations insist Greenland is not for sale while quietly relying on American troops, money, and missiles to keep the peace that permits such comfortable posturing. It's a bit like lecturing the fire brigade on property rights while borrowing their hoses. Principles are easy to defend when someone else pays the insurance. Yeah, you know what? True. Maybe the European Union should kick out all United States military bases, and build up their own forces. Because clearly the United States is the playground bully. And this author here is saying that you rely on the mob's protection, essentially. Jesus, jump scare. Why am I getting a Trump jump scare? Holy crap. Oh, it's a video. Under a little known Cold War agreement, the 1951, the United States already enjoys sweeping military access in Greenland. Right now, the United States has one base in a very remote corner of the island. Good, and they should be taken out. They should be kicked out. They should be kicked out immediately. The deeper issue is not Trump's rhetoric. It is, but America's reluctance to admit what it is. The U.S. remains a global power in a competitive world. It cannot afford strategic blind spots disguised as virtue. Greenland is not a vanity project or a colonial hangover. It is. It's a strategic anchor, a surveillance platform. That's great. A logistical hub, as an IO asset, all wrapped into one. To lose influence there would cause to immediate, but no one's losing influence there. Okay, the Americans enjoyed broad access to Greenland. But it would mark a significant retreat, the kind rivaled notice long before voters do. This is why the moment feels different. The language is sharper. No, the moment feels different because we have a fascist dictator, okay, who wants to make this a reality. That's why this moment feels different. Yet European leaders are doing everything possible to keep America in Europe. Yeah, weak sauce. Force remains the last resort, and rightly so. No, it is the only resort. Greenland is not for sale. They've already said that. It is expensive, corrosive, and unpredictable. Buying Greenland would cost money and pride, but far less than conflict. Realism doesn't require hostility. The United States has often secured vital positions without resorting to force. Yeah, okay. It gained long-term access to Iceland during World War II because the island mattered more than diplomatic niceties. It remained strategic basing in Okinawa during negotiations despite local resistance, but because geography demanded it. Doesn't make it right. Analysts say the Cold War agreement allows the president to increase American military presence almost at will. The New York Times. Well, the New York Times can be wrong. I mean, I know that they had. I know that they had broad access to Greenland. Greenland deserves the same treatment now. Serious talks that reflect its importance offer fair payment to Denmark, respect the local self-rule, and protect U.S. interests without turning Arctic into unnecessary flashpoint. Trump has his sights set on Greenland because the map leaves little room for alternatives. No, there's no way out of it other than invading Greenland. There's no way out of it other than invading Greenland. That's how it's going to have to be. Like, that's what this author is dishonestly hiding from this whole thing. There's two things here. He's pretending like there is a way, that there is a way to do this without military force, despite Greenland and Denmark saying that it is not for sale. Okay? And for two, we're pretending like this is do or die. That if we don't do this, then Russia and China are going to move in. There's no evidence of that. That's not happening. Okay? And he's lying because we know that the United States enjoys, as part of NATO, broad access to Greenland, if we really wanted to. And if we were so worried about Russia and China, then why not ask Greenland if we can park more gear there?
Tony Dokapil just learned the hard way that you cannot cosplay as a man of the people while cashing a billionaire's paycheck and parroting MAGA-coded talking points on CBS. So his first week in the big chair at CBS Evening News was such a ratings faceplant that he ended it by begging viewers to just trust him after they'd already turned off the TV. Now, let's talk about CBS's new anti-elite anchor, who went to a $53,000 a year prep school, lives in a Brooklyn townhouse, and is tanking the numbers faster than his billionaire boss's PR department can spin. So let's start with the numbers because capitalism worships them. Okay. Dokapil's debut pulled in around 4.4 million viewers. By night 4, that was down about 3.9 million. That's still a lot, true, but not good. Not good at all. Overall, the show dropped more than 11% in his first week. In the key 25 to 54 demo, the one that advertisers actually give a crap about, it was worse, much worse. Nearly a 20% drop from Monday to Thursday. This ain't just a slow start. His predecessors, John Dickerson and Maurice Dubois, did almost 800,000 more viewers in their debut week. Same time slot, same network, same country. The difference is the guy in the chair and the message coming out his mouth. CBS looked at that and said, oh, perfect, let's double down. By Tuesday, after that brutal slide, Dokapil ends his show with this needy little monologue.
I may not agree with everything you hear on this broadcast, but we trust you to listen and we trust you to decide for yourself. And that's another day in America. I'm Tony Dokapil, live from Detroit.
That right there is pure consultant brain. I mean, you can kind of feel the meeting that birthed that line. Okay. Tony. You need a signature sign-off, man. It sounds deep, but doesn't actually commit to anything. Think Cronkite, but with vibes. Oh, really? Now, the problem is, of course, is that Cronkite never had to plead with the viewers to trust him. He earned it by doing, get this, journalism. Journalism that actually tried to challenge power. Dokapil is trying to earn it with branding while the show is literally bleeding viewers in real time. It's a good job. Before he even took a seat, by the way, he did this New Year's video where he had railed against legacy media, the very thing that he is on, for listening to quote unquote advocates and academics and not average Americans. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this is the Fox News MAGA script. Okay. You sneer at the elites and the academics, the smart people, that don't do very well with Donald Trump. Pretend that you're the only one who cares about the regular people and never, ever mention the billionaire who signs your paycheck. He says, I'm not going to answer to advertisers, politicians, or corporate interests, including the new owners of CPS. You know what I say? Adorable. That is adorable. Because the very person who picked him for that seat is Barry Weiss, a professional anti-woke pundit, installed as editor-in-chief by David Ellison, a very Trump-friendly billionaire Nepo baby. Look, this is not a grassroots newsroom revolt. This is a top-down billionaire engineered populism in a suit and tie. That's what that is. Let's talk about this average American that he claims to be speaking for. Dokapil went to a $53,000 a year prep school, then to George Washington University, then Columbia. He and his wife, MSNBC anchor Katie Tour, live in a 4-story townhouse in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Now, hey, good for them, I guess. They got their bag. I'm not saying rich people can't also care about the plight of the poor. I mean, there are the patriotic millionaires. There are politicians like Bernie Sanders, who, despite his assets, and he's got assets now, made a lot of money from selling books. Turns out he is still not fabulously wealthy compared to his colleagues. So, millionaires and rich people can be on the side of working people. They can be. They just choose not to be. So, and this guy, definitely not one of those people. So spare me the "I'm just like you" anti-elite routine when your entire career is nothing more than a one long LinkedIn flex, okay? But this is what billionaire media owners are doing now. They're trying to cash in on that anti-elite sentiment. But they do so by taking a guy marinated in elite institutions and try to slap a label of anti-establishment on them. I guess it worked for Donald Trump. They're telling the viewers, oh, see, we fixed the media now. You can trust us. Viewers, of course, are responding the only way that they can, by changing the channel. Y'all remember when CBS News at least pretended to be about doing real journalism? Yeah, I know. Well, that's over. And it's long over. Barry Weiss, who built her brand whining about cancel culture and woke mobs, is the one running CBS News. She is the one who gave DeKoppel the seat. And she does not hide her politics. She has been very cozy with the intellectual dark web crowd and parrots right-wing narratives about campuses and social justice. Now, over her sits David Ellison, a Trump-friendly billionaire heir, now owning the whole operation. So when DeKoppel tells you that he's not serving corporate interests, understand how absolutely insulting that is. Because the entire structure above him is nothing more than one giant corporate interest. And let me tell you, this is what oligarchic media capture looks like in the year 2026. A Trump-adjacent billionaire buys a legacy network and installs an anti-woke crusader as the news boss, puts a rebranded man of the people in Cronkite's chair, and hopes the costume change fools enough viewers to protect profits and Trump-era access. So far, though, the ratings say, not working. Not working. Now, you might say, and if you're still here, great. But you might be thinking, who cares, man? It's just one guy on one show. Well, this is a test case. Okay? If Ellison and Weiss can successfully morph CBS Evening News into a MAGA-friendly, billionaire-safe product without seeing massive viewer revolt, understand that every other network owner is watching. They'd love to trot out the, oh yeah, we're also anti-elite now branding, while quietly pushing pro-corporate, pro-Trump, pro-authoritarian narratives. Now, the good news here, and there is good news, is that the audience isn't as dumb as they think. When the new anchor spends his first week stumbling over the teleprompter, comparing himself to Cronkite, and delivering a Trump interview where the audio is literally drowned out by factory noise, people notice. They see the gap here between the promise of you come first, not corporate interests, and the reality, which is I work for a Trump-friendly billionaire and anti-woke editor who hired me to fix their image problem. So yeah, DeKoppel wants you to trust him and decide for yourself. I agree. Decide for yourself. Decide whether you trust a news operation run by a Trump billionaire and anti-woke culture warrior, or independent outlets, unionized newsrooms, and independent creators who do not have a corporate HR department writing all of their sign-off lines. It actually does matter which blue you vote for, okay? Because it turns out that, blue, no matter who, odds are you're going to get a very corporate-friendly Democrat, like Gavin Newsom. California Governor Gavin Newsom just made it crystal clear who he actually works for. California healthcare workers came up with a plan to make billionaires pay a tiny little bit of their hoarded wealth to keep people alive. And Newsom's response wasn't, oh, how can we make this work? It was, how fast can I kill this plan for my donors? That's right. This so-called progressive governor is fighting harder for billionaires than for patients and nurses. And I'm not calling him a progressive governor, by the way. I've always known who Newsom really is. But for those of you who are not familiar with Newsom, well, here you go. This one's for you. So here's what's on the table. Unions representing healthcare workers in California, led by the SEIU-UHW, are pushing a ballot initiative for 2026. A one-time 5% tax on fortunes over $1 billion. Not on small business, not on middle-class homeowners, but on the ultra-rich who are sitting on obscene levels of wealth, while hospitals are understaffed and communities are losing their healthcare. That money would go to shoring up healthcare in California as federal funding gets slashed and their costs skyrocket. It is a direct response to a system that lets billionaires ride rockets to space while your ER closes. That's the proposal. 5% one time on assets over $1 billion. These people affected by this, a very, very small amount of people, they would still be billionaires the next morning. But how does Newsom respond? According to reports, Newsom and his team have been working for months behind the scenes to try to stop this billionaire tax from even reaching the voters. That's right. Publicly, he called it really damaging to the state and says that it makes no sense. Privately, he leans on allies, donors, anyone he can to try to shut it down before Californians even get a chance to vote on it. Now, remember, this is who Newsom is. He's a man who loves to posture on TV about standing up to Donald Trump and the far right. But when nurses and janitors ask billionaires to kick in an extra 5% one time to keep hospitals funded, suddenly this man is discovering his inner Larry Summers. He is showing you exactly who he really is, who he has always been. Newsom's main line, of course, is, oh, well, we can't do this at the state level. Billionaires, they're going to leave, and it's going to hurt California's competitiveness. Ugh. Same old excuse, right? So, a couple points here. As I mentioned, same old tired threat that CEOs always trot out every time anyone talks about taxing them fairly. Oh, if you make us pay anything, we're going to move. We're going to move. Okay, cool. Go ahead. Go sit in Florida's humidity with Ron DeSantis in his boots while, and his collapsing insurance market. I'm sure you'll love it there. Secondly, Newsom says he prefers to have a national conversation about a wealth tax instead. The translation, of course, is let's kick this upstairs to a level where nothing will ever happen. But I can still sound like I'm a progressive on MS Now. Yeah. Now, if this man, if he actually believed in taxing extreme wealth, he'd be treating this state effort as a model, a pressure point. Instead, he is treating this as a threat to be neutralized. Because the real issue here isn't about competitiveness. It is donor class panic. The second you can prove that you can tax billionaires at the state level and that people like it, because it's overwhelmingly popular, that model spreads. And the people writing the big check to Newsom's political operation know this. Let's look at who is actually getting squeezed here. Healthcare workers are already fighting against federal cuts and privatization. Corporate hospital chains that are demanding more profit with fewer staff. Burnout. Lots of that, especially after COVID. Short staffing. Unsafe conditions. So they try to use the one tool regular people have left in California. The ballot initiative. They gather signatures. They build a campaign and say, fine, if DC won't help, we'll tax the billionaires right here and we'll fund this ourselves. And now they're not just fighting against Donald Trump's austerity agenda and the corporate greed. They're fighting against their own Democratic governor, who supposedly shares their values. But he doesn't, of course. Just ask any transgender person how many times Newsom has thrown you under the bus. Look, this is how oligarchy actually operates. It ain't just Republicans openly doing the bidding of the rich. It is Democrats in blue states quietly making sure that nothing fundamentally changes for their donors. Now, Newsom loves that national attention. Oh boy, he positions himself as, I'm the anti-Trump. I'm the man who will save democracy from the MAGA movement. But democracy isn't just about beating Republicans in elections. It is about whether regular people can use the political system to take on concentrated wealth and power. And on that front, Newsom has just told us exactly where he stands. Given a choice between a democratic process where voters decide whether billionaires should pay 5% to fund healthcare or protecting billionaire comfort and keeping their money untouched, Newsom has chosen the billionaires. He is not afraid that this is going to hurt the state. He's afraid that it will hurt his relationship with the people who bankroll campaigns, foundation, consulting gigs, and whatever national ambitions this man's cooking up. I mean, presidential run? A primary? Probably. And by the way, this isn't really about Gavin Newsom's personal morals. It's about the class he represents. You put a slick liberal veneer on all this stuff. You can talk about equity and inclusion and innovation, whatever. But when push comes to shove, these men will always protect concentrated wealth over working people every single time. The nurses, the techs, the janitors, patients backing this wealth tax, they are not radicals. They're not trying to burn it all down. They're just saying, hey, billionaires made a killing off this system. We're asking for a slice to keep people from literally dying. It's one time, 5%, not radical. You're still going to be rich beyond imagination. I mean, this is not even the compromise position. This is the conservative position. 5% to keep hospitals running? If it were up to me, 90%. 100%. If you're any dollar over $1 billion, I'm taking all of it. I'm going to redistribute it to the people, okay? That's what I would do. You wouldn't want me in office, billionaires. You wouldn't want me. And even if I was and was able to do everything that I wanted to do, you would still be massively rich. I mean, at this point, people who hoard that much money, they have a mental illness. There is something wrong with them massively. Look, if you can't get a Democratic governor in a deep blue state to back something as simple as a one-time 5% wealth tax, what does that tell you about how captured this party is by the donor class? So the next time that you hear Gavin Newsom talking about standing up against the extremists and defending democracy, well, remember this. When working class people tried to use democracy to tax billionaires to fund healthcare, he didn't stand with them He stood in their way. If you live in California, pay attention to this ballot fight. Don't let them quietly smother it with BS consultant talking points about staying competitive. No, ask your local, your legislatures and your local Democratic clubs straight up. Do you support taxing billionaires to fund healthcare? Yes or no? It's a simple answer. Because this is the real divide now. Okay. It is not just Democrats versus Republicans. It is billionaire power versus everyone else. And Gavin Newsom, well, Newsom continues to show us which side he has always been on.
Take it away. So we haven't forgotten about the Epstein files. That's just one of the list. One of the list. But in my opinion, there's so much that's harmful and dangerous. It's, most of it is really morally indefensible. Now, the orange turd said the other day about going to Greenland, that he would make up his mind, but it was all about his morals. Does he know what the word moral means? Does he know what morality is? I don't think so. I don't think so. What's happening, I'd say, is that they are really working hard in this administration to legitimize all of this negative. Everything stinks. All of the negativity into being norm. What's normal? They talking about continuing. He continues to talk about the elections as fraudulent. Continues to do that. He's weaponizing the Department of Justice, weaponizing against anybody, going after the Fed chair that he hired. Just to, and is it all, do we know if it's all to be a smokescreen for the Epstein files? Part of it, but they really are. It's every single day, obviously, right? So they're weaponizing that, and they've already weaponized federal law enforcement. Now, this administration right now is going after Penn State. But what they are asking Penn State to do is they want the lists of every Jewish person that works there under the anti-Semitism, trying to stop anti-Semitism. But this is really not the way to do it. They're weaponizing the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is the EEOC. I was an affirmative action officer. I was the person that did all that. And so the EEOC does not do that. They have weaponized the EEOC, and Penn State is not turning that stuff over. All of this, it's just to scare people. But what's behind it? What's behind it? We're all talking about all of the oligarchs that are donating, that have given money. His son-in-law is Jewish, so Stephen Miller is in my opinion, and people got upset with me and didn't realize I wasn't calling Trump this. I was calling Stephen Miller, and I never thought in my life I would see a Jewish white supremacist Nazi running the show, whispering in the president's ear, believing it all. So I don't know what this is all about. It's going to have to be fleshed out. Why are they asking specifically for names? The EEOC doesn't do that. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is not that. When they are doing an investigation, and I've been part of investigations with them, they don't ask for specific people's names. If they want to interview a witness, if I wanted to interview a witness, I ask first. You ask first. You get permission first when it's this kind of thing. This isn't criminal. This is an investigation. So why do they want every Jewish professor claiming it's because of anti-Semitism and students? And the students groups are going crazy. Like they should. They should. Sorry, I have hair in my face. So it's bad. It's bad. And then there's the threats against judges and the prosecutors and journalists. They just raided a journalist's home, Washington Post journalist. They raided her home. They're took her shit. They're doing this to civil servants. What do they want to try to make intimidation normal? political intimidation, like it's something that, oh, we should just, this is the way it is. We should all run around being scared. Fuck no. And they've even undermined whistleblower protections. Yep. That's been done. And of course, we all know that they're trying to NSPM-7. Ken Klippenstein told us all about it, that we are, being told we're the enemy from within, or domestic terrorism, or terrorists, or whatever they're trying to do. Are they trying? Today, I even saw something that said possibly martial law. We have really crossed the tipping point, man. We have crossed the Rubicon. Holy shit. Now, I want to talk about my list of climate change and environmental destruction, but I'm going to do that last, because then I'm going to go on to the EPA and a little bit about NCAR. And I wanted to play a video I took of John Hickenlooper talking today, but I didn't have time to edit it. But he did a spectacular job. He's the former governor of Colorado. And I think whatever. He's in the Senate. Anyway, he did a spectacular job, and I recorded it, but I didn't have time to edit it. So next on my list was obviously immigration and human rights, because they don't believe in human rights. They couldn't give two shits about any of us. They really couldn't. They care about the oligarchs. They care about each other. And so obviously we've seen, the mass detention, the deportations, going to El Salvador. I mean, all of this craziness. Do we know where these people are that they're picking up? And the article yesterday, I talked about it in last night's show, about the professor from the University of Buffalo who made the wrong turn, which happens in Buffalo, went over the Peace Bridge by accident, had to come back to the United States. And now he's held in an ICE detention center in Batavia, because they're saying, I don't know what they're saying, his visa's good. It's a J1. It's up in 2029. And this is the shit that's really it's happening. We can't be scared, though. We cannot show fear. That is what they want. That's what they want. And they're still doing family separations. They're just beating people up on the streets. We're seeing it every day because everybody's filming it. And if you see it, live stream it. Like Jake said last night, live stream, live stream, live stream. We have to, because this is for history. And of course, they're saying, migrants, all migrants are criminals, which is a bunch of bullshit. We know that. They're not going after just criminals. They have crossed the line. They've crossed that line. And now it's how many countries? They have terminated the ability for anybody to get visas from 72 countries, maybe. I don't have the list in front of me, but a lot of countries. So that's it. Immigration is probably a thing of the past. I don't know why we even have a fucking Statue of Liberty. Why? Why do we have a Statue of Liberty? And then the sanctuary cities. Our governor in New York just said they're not going to cooperate with ICE. New York is a sanctuary city. Mamdani is going to make sure it stays that way. So far, we're not in the news. My state is not in the news yet. Big time, like Minneapolis, like what's happening in Minnesota, but it's happening in other places. And then, of course, due process. Human rights. What are they to these people? What are they? Civil liberties? Okay. Yeah. So those were some of the things I had on my list. And then, of course, LGBTQ. They're going after trans people in the worst way. I'm afraid for them. I'm afraid for our trans friends. Seriously. And they're rolling back, and they roll back all the protections. There's, they want to make sure that sex and gender in the federal law is completely what it is. If you've changed your license, it's going to be a thing. It is a thing already. Lying about gender affirming healthcare. And saying that, they're talking like little children, young children are having these types of procedures, which is such a lie. but that's propaganda TV. That's Fox. Definitely. So that's all. That's all, God. And gender affirming is what Mar-a-Lago face is. The women with the lips and all the Botox, that's gender affirming. What would happen? What would happen if they banned Botox? Oh my God. Would all the Mar-a-Lago bitches be protesting outside of the White House? I mean, RFK Jr., he's so into health. Botox is not quite that, I don't think, wonderful, is it? We don't know. And, and then there's all the religious freedom bullshit that's being used against LGBTQ people. But Scott Bessent is a gay man, and he's married with kids in the administration, but they never talk about him, interestingly enough. Isn't that interesting?
Here's the hell of it. Actually, not 2003. Let me jump back. That's when we officially declared war, but we were okay with doing violence without understanding why that violence was being done. That's happening now, obviously, in Venezuela. But the key difference, I think, is that due to Trump's very public incompetence, it's too obvious for us to for the rest of the world to play along, and therefore for us to ignore. But nonetheless, you should understand that if you're an American hearing about foreign wars, you're going to have to start with basic education. You probably have not been told the context in which any of this stuff is happening. To you, it seems like, whoa, violence out of nowhere, suddenly. It must be a complicated issue that I don't understand. It is, in fact, a simple issue that you don't understand. I'm talking about the average American. I know you all, if you're watching this, likely follow the news pretty closely, have some idea of the history of the United States. Might have been paying attention for the last 26 years, even. But the average American doesn't. And as I have stated a bunch of times, we're past the era of being able to accomplish the things that need to get accomplished by merely working within our own group. In truth, that era was always hypothetical to begin with. It was always, well, if we win huge this next time, then we can do X, Y, and Z. If we win huge this next time, we can't do X anymore, but we might be able to pull off Y and Z. Well, look, if we win huge, and I mean a blue tidal wave, even though X and Y are now impossible goals because we've drifted so far away from them, we can still just eke out Z and then start building back America from there. Well, now X, Y, and Z are all gone. It doesn't mean we can't accomplish the things that must be done, but it does mean that we cannot do it without what I would call revolutionary reform. And that sounds exciting. That's the sort of thing lefties love to say, especially if they're going to waste your time, not actually get anything done. Revolutionary reform sounds exciting. Here's what it actually means. Changes to the way America functions. Structural changes put in place by Americans. For example, any of the amendments to the Constitution. That's revolutionary reform. The Bill of Rights, that's revolutionary reform. It was literally reform done right after the revolution. We need more of that stuff. And to get that stuff done, and just to give you real world modern examples, so what I'm talking about is universal health care. Government funded, entirely run healthcare. Actually, no, it doesn't even have to be that specific. Just entirely government funded healthcare. That's revolutionary reform. Raising the cap on Social Security taxes to the degree that we need to. instead of saying you don't pay any Social Security taxes after $250,000, no, utterly removing the cap. You pay Social Security taxes out of every dollar that you make, even if you're a billionaire. You already pay that if you're not a millionaire. You're already paying 100% of the dollars you make are subject to Social Security taxes. But if you are a millionaire or above, then only the very start to your funds every year get taxed, to your profits every year get taxed for Social Security. We need to utterly do away with the cap on Social Security taxes. That's revolutionary reform. It's boring. To actually say the part that gets things done is boring. And when you find your smelly, dirty, exhausted hippie friend out there mumbling about the need for revolution, even if they don't realize it, this is the sort of thing that they're talking about getting to. When you get all the interesting stuff done, that's what we need. Now, we could get the votes necessary by winning a giant argument that takes place every 2 years. Or we could take advantage of the fact that our politicians are supposed to be carrying out our will always, not just when they need to get re-upped for their position of power. We could take advantage of that fact and get people who disagree with us on other issues to agree with us on the major issues. And hence, I bring it back to the United States and its violence abroad. Even Republicans quite recently acknowledged that the Iraq war was bad. Even Republicans quite recently acknowledged that having diddlers in office is bad. We can work with this. Look, they don't need to agree with us that Donald Trump should be removed over his unleashing of ICE on the American population, on his taking of bribes for through various means, including crypto, including his inauguration, including the expansion to the White House, which is just a giant means of taking bribes. By the way, I promise you, all the money he took from these companies does not go to the renovations. They don't need to agree with us on every one of those issues. They don't need to agree with us necessarily that the illegal invasion of Venezuela is wrong. But they don't need to agree with us on all of those issues, just one. Because every one of those issues is something that you should take the president out of office for, that he should be arrested for. You only need to win one of these conversations. And the devil's trick is to try to get you to abandon a good point in favor of making a new argument. It's the same reason that Republican politicians lace evil, lace bigotry, lace needless cruelty into everything they do. Because you and I will be tempted to address that. It's because you and I have souls. And we're going to be talking to people who you would need the mightiest of e-readers, of Thetan measurers, to register any shred of a soul that remains. That's a trap. That's a trap that's there to get you making arguments that won't work. So, what to do? Well, keep it simple to start. If you truly understand the things people are saying on TV and on the internet and all these places, if you truly understand what these arguments are, but you are not able to put it in your own words, as in you repeat back the words you heard somebody else say, but you can't rephrase it. You can't make it simpler. You can't put it in terms that the person across from you will understand. Bad news. You don't actually understand. You've just been given enough information to put your worries at ease. But if you aren't able to take that information and do things with it yourself, like rephrase it, like simplify it, then you don't really understand. And that's okay. You're not supposed to begin with perfect understanding necessarily, but it should tell you what you need to do next. You need to understand more. And that doesn't just mean search for things telling me that, no, trust me, this information is correct. It's not about that. It's about your understanding of the information. So you need to grow your understanding if that's the case. And if I sit here trying to tell you all the ways you might have to grow your understanding, you might have to increase your knowledge, it might seem complicated, but it's not complicated. Because you will understand where you are weak. For example, if you don't understand what the Monroe Doctrine is, and you're talking about why it's bad that Donald Trump is saying it's the Donroe Doctrine, you don't have to go through all of U.S. history over the last 40 years or 60 years to understand what the Monroe Doctrine is. You just have to Google Monroe Doctrine and read a little bit so you're able to rephrase it. Evangelizing is going to be a major part of your life for the foreseeable future. Certainly throughout the next election, congressional, and certainly throughout the next presidential election. And even if we get rid of the entire Republican Party, which, by the way, is bordering on a legal maneuver, which is necessary. As in, for democracy to continue, we must acknowledge this is a criminal organization, the Republican Party. But even if we get to that point, we cannot afford another Obama. We certainly can't afford another Clinton, my God. We can't afford Gavin Newsom as president. We cannot afford, let me pick on my own state, Alyssa Slotkin as a representative. Gretchen Whitmer did a fine job as governor. She cannot be the president. This era has no room for neoliberal nonsense. It doesn't even have room for people who are going to pretend like neoliberal nonsense is the way to go, while they quietly do some kind of progressive things. It's just, it doesn't work like that anymore. So no matter what happens, you are going to be an evangelist. Because you have to be. Because we need people who do not already believe what we believe in order to get things to the place they need to be for this country to survive. Okay. How many of you feel like you understand who the opposition leader in Venezuela is? I'm betting not many. That's okay. It really is. I thought I knew who she was. I thought I had a sense kind of, it was vibes based. I saw that she got a Peace Prize recently, but there was some controversy because she thanked Donald Trump. thought I understood. I thought I was like, yeah, Kamala Harris, I get it. I didn't realize that this is the same woman that worked with George W. Bush to try to overthrow the government in Venezuela in the early 2000s. I didn't realize she was a collaborator, as somebody who attempted to work with a foreign country, that's us, to overthrow power in her country. Not very democratic, is it? And really, he's not really the sort of person who deserves a peace prize, is it? Do you remember when this couple, if you can go all the way back to a couple days ago, do you recall when I said that that Trump was dumb for not having the replacement ready to go? The old school way that the U.S. does regime change is we have a replacement leader who's going to be a puppet for us, ready to go. That was so obviously Maria Corina Machado. And then we get rid of, kill or kidnap, the old leader, plug in the new one, and we say they run Venezuela now. See, we've done a good thing. But Trump is the clown version of imperialism. Trump is the imperial march played on the kazoo.
So imagine this. You're a journalist, and you've written publicly about how dangerous ICE is. You've criticized their raids, their abuses, the whole entire deportation machine. And you decide, as an investigation, of course, hey, let's see what happens when I actually apply to work for ICE. So you show up, you apply, but you don't finish the paperwork. You don't even complete the screenings, okay? And you are, again, on record as being against ICE. And the response from the federal government is basically, congratulations, here's your badge and your gun. There you go. What? Wait, what? Now combine that, because that really happened, with what just happened in Minneapolis, okay, where a 37-year-old mother named Renee Nicole Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent during one of Donald Trump's big flashy immigration surges, okay? That is not a coincidence. That's what we call cause and effect. See, we need to talk about how a broken, chaotic, disastrous hiring system is getting people killed. So let's zoom out. Let's start with the big picture, okay? Donald Trump is desperately trying to deliver on his largest deportation operation in American history. And to do that, you need bodies. Lots of them. Not trained professionals. No, not people who understand the law. Are you kidding me? No, why would we want that? Not anybody who is trained in de-escalation or even in basic human rights. No. Just warm bodies in uniforms who will do what they're told. That's it. So ICE launches this massive recruitment surge, right? More agents, faster, quicker hiring, shortened training, rush vetting, even if there is any vetting. Okay. Look, they're basically not building a careful law enforcement apparatus. No, they're building a private army. Trump's private army. And like every authoritarian project, of course, the first thing to go that goes right out the window is basic standards. And so that's where the Slate reporter's story comes into play. See, this is not a MAGA superfan who, grew up dreaming of busting down doors with immigration, going after the illegals. No, this is a critic. Somebody who's written extensively, publicly, about the abuses performed by ICE. Her name is Laura Jadid, and she wrote in Slate. She applied for an ICE job as part of her reporting project, testing the system. They want to, basically, they wanted to see that, hey, does ICE actually take vetting seriously? Are they checking the backgrounds? Do they even read the records? And what happens? Well, the process is a mess. Required screening steps are skipped or mishandled. Forms go missing. Follow-ups don't really happen. The kind of basic bureaucracy you'd expect if you were applying at a job. For example, I don't know, Costco. ICE can't even manage that. Yeah, that's right. The reporter doesn't finish all the screenings. They don't even clear all the hurdles. And they're very clearly not playing by the standard job applicant script. And yet, the ICE machine just keeps from rolling. They're essentially told, yeah, you're good, welcome aboard. Welcome to ICE. I mean, this is the South Park thing, okay, playing out in real time. We don't care. We don't care at all. If you're fat and lazy or crazy, or it doesn't matter. Here's your badge. Here's your gun. There is no meaningful conversation about the very public criticism of this agency. No serious pause over any incomplete documentation, no red flags about hiring somebody whose entire professional record screams, I think this agency is dangerous and maybe out of control. That is not just incompetence. It is desperation. If you are so committed to Donald Trump's deportation surge that you will effectively wade through somebody who hates what you do, if you do a 5-minute Google search or a 5-second Google search, you would find all the stuff that Laura has written about ICE, and it is not complimentary. And I happen to agree with all of it. So, I mean, look, they just want to slap another name on the ICE roster. So if they do that, what do you think you're doing with people who actually want to abuse power? Because if the bar is so low, and it is, that a known critic can just slide right under it, then, well, what about somebody with a history of violence or domestic abuse? What do you think? Or extremist politics? They ain't just slipping through, man. They are being welcomed. They're being welcomed with a big old neon sign. It's welcome to ICE. You're exactly who we want. Look, man, this isn't just about embarrassing paperwork or bumbling, idiotic bureaucrats, okay? This is about who we're handing a government gun to. When you have rush background checks, incomplete psychological screenings, little to no serious attempt to filter out racist, fascist, and angry men looking for legal cover to harm people, training that is shortened, simplified, and framed around you are the front line in a war. A war. You're going to get exactly what you'd expect, man. Trigger-happy psychos claiming federal immunity. It's exactly who they want. And remember, this is not happening in a vacuum. This is happening while Trump is telling these people that immigrants are invaders, that we're in a war for the country. Stephen Miller saying the same thing, having Nazi signs, Nazi slogans, and saying that, law enforcement has been betrayed. They need to take the gloves off. And that's exactly what Trump has done. Hey, if you tell enough people that they're soldiers in a war, and you barely vet them, you rush them through the training, and then you drop them into American neighborhoods with guns and unmarked SUVs, what do you think is going to happen if they feel just a tiny little bit scared? They ain't going to de-escalate. We've already seen that. They don't slow down. They don't think, is this proportional? They squeeze the trigger. And that takes us to Minneapolis. On January 7th, 2026 in Minneapolis, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent during a federal immigration enforcement operation. Renee was a mother of 3. Federal authorities quickly pushed out this familiar bullshit script. Oh, the agent was fearing for his life. She used your car as a weapon. He had no choice. Look, we've heard this story so many times. It could have been auto-generated by AI. It probably was. Let's be honest. But then, of course, you have video that surfaced, witnesses that have spoken out, and Surprise to no one, the narrative from ICE does not match. Of course not. It never does. By multiple accounts, including video, Renee was turning her car away and not ramming into that agent. She is trying to get out of a terrifying situation. The agent fires anyway, multiple shots in a city that has already lived through the police murder of George Floyd. Now, any normal functional justice system would say, okay, that's serious. We do need an independent investigation here. We need to do something about this. We need to look at this from every single angle and find out the truth so that we can get accountability. Instead, what's happening? The Department of Justice announced that it sees no basis for a civil rights investigation. None. And it's so outrageous that federal prosecutors, people inside the system, reportedly resign in protest over how this case is being handled. Think about how bad it has to be for federal prosecutors to say, I can't be a part of this no more, guys. So what we have is a woman dead, a community in the streets that is protesting, evidence that contradicts the official story, the official narrative, and a federal government shrugging and saying, don't care, looks fine, moving on. We got Greenland to go invade. I mean, again, this is not one bad apple. Okay, this is what happens when you build an entire enforcement machine around speed, ideology, and impunity. That's it. So now let's connect this back to the Slate reporter. Okay, on one end of the pipeline, you have an agency that is so chaotic and desperate for warm bodies that they are effectively ready to hire someone who didn't complete the screenings. And it was written publicly about how dangerous this agency is. And on the other end, you have an ICE agent killing a mother of 3 in Minneapolis with evidence that undercuts the story and a federal system bending over backwards to protect them from real accountability. These are not separate stories. These are the same story, just at different stages. Lax chaotic hiring means people who should never be allowed near a badge are getting badges. Training that is about aggression, not restraint. Supervision that is weak because everything is moving so fast. And the message from the top is, don't worry about it. You're doing God's work. You're under attack. Don't let anyone tie your hands. And when someone dies, well, the same system that failed on the front end fails in the back end. The investigators are the colleagues. The DOJ, of course, is politically captured. And the priority is protecting the mission, not the public. This is how authoritarian systems operate in real life. Renee Nicole Good is dead because the system, from recruitment to deployment to accountability, has been designed to protect itself first, not us. And we need to be very clear about this. It's not an accident. You see, when Trump and his allies talk about mass deportation, giant detention camps, using the military at the border and in our cities, they need an apparatus that is willing to execute that vision. And when you have that, well, you don't really have time to build a professional, ethical workforce. So they need yes men. They need true believers. Right now. They need it now. So standards, drop, gone, training, rushed, vetting, basically a rubber stamp at this point. And if a few extremists with militia fantasies slip through, if a few abusers get a government gun, from the perspective of an authoritarian project, that is not a bug. It is a feature. Because who's going to be more eager to raid homes at 4 a.m., to drag people out in front of their kids, to drag U.S. citizens out in front of their kids, to open fire on terrified women in the road? Not someone who went into law enforcement to actually serve the public. No, someone who went in simply because they want power and a target to use it on. If this is what ICE looks like now, well, with reporters being able to slip through the hiring pipeline and agents killing people in Minneapolis, imagine what's going to look like in 2, maybe 3 years. They want this system turbocharged, bigger, meaner, and even less accountable than it already is. more Renees, more families destroyed, more prosecutors either quitting or learning to keep their heads down, more communities told that the video that they're watching with their own eyes somehow isn't the reality. So what do we do? Well, first, we got to stop pretending that this is just about a few bad agents or training issues. This is structural. It's political. It's intentional. Second, we do need to pay attention locally. ICE does not operate in a vacuum. They work with local police, sheriffs, jails. So your sheriff's race matters. Okay. Your city council stance on cooperating with ICE matters. Sanctuary policies matter. If your local officials keep rolling out the red carpet for ICE, that's a choice. Third, we have to understand that a broken, desperate, chaotic hiring system is a tool. It's a tool that Trump is using to hire loyalists who are and will be ready to enforce his will. Full stop. This is the building of a private army. Look, at the end of the day, Renee Nicole Good should be alive today. Her kid should have a mother. And an agency that can be barely bothered to vet its own agent should not be trusted with life and death power over millions of people. It shouldn't even exist. It shouldn't even exist. And so if your politicians, regardless of what side of the aisle that they're on, if they're not calling for the abolition of ICE today, after everything that has happened so far, they should be primaried and replaced. Simple as that.
Hello. I am here to do a show. I'll be honest. I don't really know exactly what the show is going to be about. There's a lot to talk about, so it could go in any direction today. But broad strokes, today's show is Cultura Animi Americana Perdis, which means your brain doesn't work so good because of the location of your birth. Americans are really stupid. They're really, 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 really stupid. Even the smart Americans are dumb as hell. Like the smartest American you can think of really is kind of like maybe one of the dumbest people of all of human history, right? So we're really in a tough spot in this country, and we don't really know what we're doing. I've compared America to an alcoholic. Particularly an alcoholic, abusive parent of some kind, comes home, beats the shit out of you, falls asleep on the fucking couch or whatever, wakes up, repeat the cycle all over again. And we're really in a position where, they're going to work and they're beating the shit out of their coworkers, they're beating the shit out of people at the pub. It's all falling apart here in Fuckville. We got Max the dog walking around. I don't know if that's audible. I hope so, because otherwise I look insane. But what happened over the weekend? I know, it feels like so fucking long ago, doesn't it? But the United States did a regime change in Venezuela. I think. Did it? Does anyone know if the regime was changed? Anyway, so that happened over the weekend, just about 2 hours ago, by the way. The death squads sent by the king of this country shot someone in the face, and now they're dead, and there's blood everywhere, and their head basically exploded. So that's really cool. Really happy to see where we're at in this country. Things are all falling apart here, and I would like to posit a potential reason as to why. Especially when it comes to the geopolitical goals of this current, whatever you want to call it. Donald Trump does not have long for this world. We know that. You can kind of look at him. If anyone wants to bet on when you think you'll kick the bucket, feel free to let me know. It might be this year, it might be next year. I don't know. But he does not have long for this world. And let's be honest here. Trump is the only thing keeping this party alive. There are still people out there that think Trump is on their side. I know, just think about that. The pedophile rapist is on your side, right? There are still tens and tens of millions of people that believe that the pedophile rapist is actually secretly on their side. But he does not have long for this world, and when he croaks, J.D. Vance and that ilk aren't going to have really the political capital to pull a lot of this stuff off. So they want to get the ball rolling on a lot of these projects before Trump kicks the bucket, so that when J.D. Vance inherits the position, they might 25 him and just, or whatever, they might just let him, settle down in Mar-a-Lago, or they might just keep him around until he croaks. We don't really know. But they're going to put themselves in a position where Trump is going to start all of these things that the whole regime wants to do. And then that way, when Trump is gone, J.D. Vance can say, well, what are we supposed to do? Just pull out of Greenland? It's not that easy. So we got to, blah, blah, blah. Right. So we're really hitting what I would like to call an exponential acceleration of decline, not just in the United States, but in the entire world. It's not looking so good. Donald Trump a couple days ago talked about using the military to invade Greenland. And what did Europe say? Well, they wrote a strongly worded letter. A lot of strongly worded letters are circulating nowadays. Recently, and by that I mean like 30 minutes ago, the mayor of Minneapolis did a strongly worded press conference while his police department is actively assisting the death squads that the king has sent in to Minneapolis. The mayor, the ostensible leader of the police, is saying, hey, I don't like what's going on here, but materially supporting it anyway. Again, when Venezuela was bombed and, 80-year-old grandmas were killed in their apartment buildings that no one seems to care about, it was a bloodless event that Trump likes to say. But when that happened, and Donald Trump then said that we're going to parade around the captured leader like a Roman triumph through the streets of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, everyone's favorite loser, had a strongly worded phone call with the president where he called up the president and said, I don't like it. And then later that day, the NYPD is helping, or maybe it was the day after, I don't know, it was overnight or something. Later that night, the NYPD is helping facilitate the Roman-style triumph of Maduro through the streets. So, you see a lot of these people, they campaign on doing all these great things, and as soon as they get power, all of a sudden, it's a strongly worded letter from Chuck Schumer, a strongly worded phone call from Zoran Mamdani, a strongly worded press conference from Jacob Frey. No one in leadership positions actually wants to fucking do anything about anything. Let's be honest. They're playing hot potato. That's why you see motherfuckers like Tim Walz. He's resigning in disgrace because of some fake news scandal. Because he wants to throw the potato to someone else. The same guy that sent the National Guard to invade his own state in 2020. Yeah, that guy is he's really going to do something. Nah. He's just going to throw the potato somewhere else, and we're just going to infinitely play hot fucking motherfucking potato until someone actually does something. And I guarantee you, it will not be a politician, because all politicians are going to be doing is strongly worded phone calls and strongly worded letters. They will not be doing fuck all to protect their citizenry. But hey, I don't know, Zoran Mamdani is going to make the bus fares cheaper, and that's going to help us, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it'll make it cheaper for you to get to work, subsidizing corporations, right? Because that's all free public transit is really ultimately doing. It's just subsidizing corporations. But is he going to do anything about the New York Police Department battering people on a daily basis? Nope. Because why bother? Because the New York Police Department apparently has more power than the mayor, who ostensibly has control over them. And you see this all over the place. That's why Democrats don't do fuck all about anything. Even the most amazing Democrats in the world are still not going to do fuck all about anything. So why should we expect them to? I don't expect them to, but I see a lot of people expect politicians to do something. That's not what they're there to do, right? Politicians are there to get their little pretty face on TV and talk about how great they are and how they're going to do stuff to help people. And then, I don't know, fuck off or whatever. That's all politicians do. But over the course of the last week, we've been seeing death and destruction all over the motherfucking place. And it's not looking so good. There's all kinds of shit going on in Iran. Is that a real protest movement or is it a CIA Israeli op? We don't really know. Though Iran is not necessarily the best state in the world. They are a theocracy, a conservative theocracy by a religion, which, of course, I do not agree with in any capacity. They terrorize their own citizens. That said, guess what? If Iran falls to Western, or Israeli, operations, that's not good for anybody. In fact, it's going to be a lot worse for everybody in the planet. So, I don't really want to be in the position of doing this, but hey, sometimes you just gotta hand it to the theocratic dictators of other countries because honestly, they're really the only stopgap between us as a species and World War motherfucking 3, which is vastly, increasing in the odds of happening any minute now. Donald Trump is talking about overthrowing Greenland. Some people would pronounce it Greenlund. I don't believe in contractions, so I'm going to call it Greenland. Not very green, by the way. It will be in a few years, maybe a decade or two. It'll be very green, but I don't know if we want that to happen. What would happen if Donald Trump were to go to war with Greenland? Well, that would be the destruction, the complete eradication of OTAN, which is the military alliance that Putin is very concerned about. So very excited for the death and destruction of OTAN. I'm sure Putin is very, very interested in that. And we're going to be seeing a war with Europe and Russia probably by, 2030 at the latest. But hey, it might even be this year. We might even get it in by the end of the year. We don't know. Is Europe going to go to war with the United States over Greenland? Probably not, right? Because who fucking cares about Greenland? Right? Who gives a fuck about Greenland? I don't give a fuck about Greenland. You don't give a fuck about Greenland. The only ones that give a fuck about Greenland are the people that live there. And they said they don't like it. But it doesn't matter. Because Donald Trump is going to send the military to overthrow Greenland, and then we're all fucked because OTAN is going to go away. Russia is going to invade Europe, and then, that's going to be a whole mess. Who knows with China and Taiwan situation? We're really dealing with a very rough situation here on planet Earth in the year 2026 Anno Domini, and I'm very concerned. I got to be honest. I'm concerned. Yeah. Sitting here in my comfortable chair. Man, this is a good chair. It's kind of squeaky, though. I got to get some WD-40. But, sitting here in my comfy chair, while I drink my mysterious liquid, I'm very concerned, I'm so concerned about what's going on in the world. I'm just really concerned right now. I care so deeply about the world we live in. That's that because I'm doing a podcast that's all about fucking me. That's how I'm really concerned. Oh, wow, I can't wait to do something. You think Americans are going to do fuck all about anything? No, Americans are a lost cause, right? So really, what we're in a situation is, will the rest of the world do anything? I don't know. I talk shit about Americans a lot. That's just because I was born in America and I'm very familiar with that particular brand of stupidity. But let's be honest. Most human beings are fucking dumb and fucking evil. That's my opinion. Maybe you can disagree. I would argue that 90% of humanity is worthless, evil garbage. That's my opinion. And about 5% of humanity actually cares. And then the other 5% actively cares in the opposite direction. Right? But most people, they just go along to get along. And when we live in an evil society, not just America, but the world, going along to get along means being and participating in evil. Okay? So I don't know. I'm evil to some extent. I buy food and throw it in the fucking garbage. I did that yesterday. I made some fucking food. I ate half of it and then said, I'll just throw it in the fucking garbage because I'm a fucking piece of shit. And so are you. We're all pieces of fucking shit. to some fucking extent or another, right? But guess what? There are different levels of pieces of shit, okay? Some pieces of shit are very pungent. Some pieces of shit are spongy. Other pieces of shit fall apart very easily. Some are sturdy, right? So we have all different kinds of pieces of shit. But until you realize that you're a piece of shit to some degree, how do you expect yourself to grow and change? If you can't accurately identify and diagnose how fucked up you are, how are you going to do anything about it? This is why I actively embrace how much of a fucking piece of shit I am, so that I can probably, I hope, try to grow and change, right? I eat cheese sometimes, keeps me up at night, right? But one day I'll stop eating cheese. One day, I've gotten pretty close, but still, that's a whole separate conversation. Now we're talking about Venezuela. Yeah. Right. So most Americans, right, you see a lot of the discourse over, Venezuela and all this kind of stuff. And Americans are like, oh, this is so bad. Where's our anti-war candidates? We need anti-war politicians. But, before we get anti-war politicians, before we get anti-war candidates even, we need anti-war Americans. Where are they? Where are the anti-war Americans? I don't see any candidates, any protest movements at all demanding for global reparations, for example, right? The best you can do if you're a Democrat is say no new wars or whatever. I mean, Democrats are cheerleading what's going on in Venezuela, but let's pretend, right? The best we can do for Democrats is no new wars. We're not going to give any of the money back that we stole over the course of the last 250 years. But hey, we'll stop stealing your money and we'll call it even. Yeah, that's the best we can get in America. When you ask Americans what they mean by anti-war, that's the best you're going to get. Is let's keep all the stuff that I didn't steal it. Oh, it was the Republicans that stole it, not me. But when I take power, I'm not going to give it back, right? That's the Democrats' idea of being anti-war, keeping the bullshit, but just saying, it was really horrible how the other guy stole your house, stole all of your money and gave it to me, and I'm wearing the necklace that your mother died in or whatever, and that's so horrible, oh my God, but I'm not going to give it back to you. And if you ask Americans about this, right, Americans at large are still supporting the military. Can you fucking imagine in the year 2026 to have any opinion on the military other than fuck all of them? Fuck all of them.
But hey, war is peace, right? War is peace. Trump says the U.S. isn't at war with Venezuela, even though we attacked them and took their head of state. Venezuela will not have new elections in the next 30 days, President Trump said, projecting a longer-term engagement 2 days after U.S. forces captured the nation's leader, Nicolás Maduro. So again, this isn't about liberating, right? If you have this perception that Venezuela is under a dictatorship and needs to be liberated, I'm afraid that is not what's happening here. If that's your opinion. That is not what's happening here. You are not being liberated. There is no new elections coming. Okay, this is not about democracy. And anyone telling you that this is about democracy and that Venezuela is now free is lying to you. He has immunity, but no one else in the cabinet does. Yes, and I would say that everybody the people who made the plan, the people who made the orders, and the people who carried out the orders should all be tried. 1000%. I hope everyone's having a good night. We're hanging in there. We're trying. As I said a couple weeks ago, the new rules in the rules-based order are there are no rules. Yep. So if you think you're getting democracy in Venezuela, I'm afraid that there'll be no new elections. That's not happening because the regime is still the Maduro regime, as if you want to think about it that way, is still there. They're not going anywhere. Quote, we have to fix the country first. Remember, we were told that nation building is not on the agenda for the Trump administration. Remember that? Yeah, Pepperidge Farm remembers. You can't have an election. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you, President Trump, for telling the Venezuelan people that they can or cannot have elections. There's no way the people could even vote, Trump said about the possibility of the vote next month. No, it's going to take a period of time. We have to nurse the country back to health. Yeah. By nursing the country back to health, meaning we need to facilitate the infrastructure necessary to extract as much oil as possible. Whether or not I don't know how feasible that is. Whether or not if that is if that's even profitable, I don't know. But that's what he thinks, and that's what his plan seems to be. Moreover, he said the U.S. may subsidize an effort by oil companies to rebuild the country's infrastructure, a project that he said could take less than 18 months. No. just no. I think we can do it in less time than that, but it'll be a lot of money. He said a tremendous amount of money that will have to be spent, and the oil companies will spend it, and then they'll get reimbursed by us, the taxpayer, or through revenue, because that's how we do things. He also insisted that the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela. No, we're not at war with Oceania, or what was the 1984 thing? That's right. Nurse equals suck on the oil teat. That's right. But we need to facilitate the infrastructure to get to that sweet oil. Assuming, like, I don't know what the feasibility and profitability of it is for the oil companies. A lot of them have shown a bit of skepticism about this. But if they're going to be subsidized by the U.S. Government, then whatever, by the taxpayer dollar, then it might be worth it for them. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Oceania. I forget the countries in 1984. What is it? Countries? Oceania, and Eurasia, East Asia. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was the one of the countries in 1984. If he moves on Greenland, doesn't Article 5 come into play? It seems so surreal to even consider him doing more than just talk, but in theory, it should, right? But like, I don't know how that plays out if it's a NATO member attacking NATO, right? Like, if he does that, if he does that, and it would just basically like dissolve NATO right then and there, right? Like NATO would be over, and the European countries would have to kind of band together and defend Greenland. I imagine. The three great powers in George Orwell's 1984 are Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. Yes, that's what I was referring to. No, we're not. We're at war with the people that sell drugs. We're at war with people that empty their prisons into our country and empty their drug addicts and empty. This is just regurgitated nonsense that he keeps talking about. That's not true. No. It's you did an act of war and you captured the head of state of a country, of a foreign country. That is absolutely being at war with that country. Just because like we were able to do it in 72 hours or whatever, and because that head of state was given up by their military, doesn't mean we were not at war with them. We absolutely we committed several acts of war against Venezuela leading up to all of this. No, Earthbag homie. I think they're referring to Article 5 clause of NATO, which means that an attack on one is an attack on all. I don't know how that would play out, and it would basically, in my view, would be the end of NATO. That would be it. It would be done. Because you know, the United States being the biggest player here, deciding to attack a NATO ally would basically dissolve that alliance immediately. In the roughly 20-minute interview, Trump identified a group of U.S. officials, including Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Deputy House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and Vice President Vance, who will oversee America's involvement in Venezuela. It's a group of all. They all have expertise and different expertise, but he had one word for Who ultimately is in charge? Me, of course. Me. No. And the current president of Venezuela, is the vice president. Doc Davies, welcome. Today, the British Foreign Secretary defended Trump's actions and the rules-based order by talking about rules-based alliances. That's fantastic. I mean, I guess he can just take Greenland then, if no one's going to stand up to him. This is World War II Hitler appeasement stuff. I'm not even joking. Trump's discussion of his vision for Venezuela came just a couple of hours after Maduro was arraigned in New York on a series of charges, including narco-terrorism, conspiracy and cocaine importation conspiracy, which Venezuela is not like a big producer of cocaine. They are also not a producer of fentanyl. Okay, that's not where the fentanyl is coming from. A lot of the fentanyl that's here is either manufactured here at home or from Mexico. He was seized from a compound in the capital of Caracas in the wee hours of Saturday morning during a raid by U.S. Special Forces and law enforcement officials, which, again, all of these people should be facing charges. Maduro pleaded not guilty, saying he remains the leader of his country, even as Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as Monday as his successor, which she's the basically VP, right? So, okay. Trump said Rodriguez has been cooperating with U.S. officials, but insisted there was no communication between her camp and the American side before Maduro's ouster. And just to be clear, like, it's so obvious that this has nothing to do with bringing democracy or I'm using these terms like loosely here, but bringing around change, okay? Because the opposition, right? The opposition, the clown lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize for some reason, she wasn't even brought in as the leader, nor are elections going to happen at all. So we can dispense with that idea 100,000%. When asked if there was any deal with any official in Venezuela to remove Maduro, Trump replied, "Yeah, because a lot of people wanted to make a deal, but we decided to do it this way," adding that it was without the help of Maduro. Without the help of Maduro's inner circle. That's not true. Absolutely, they had intelligence and insiders to facilitate this. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened the way it did. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Trump also declined to say whether he'd spoken to Rodriguez yet, but he said that Rubio spoke to her fluently in Spanish, and after their relationship has been very strong. Fantastic. He indicated, I have a suspicion that maybe Marco Rubio is the one that did all of this. It seems to me like Marco Rubio, it really is probably the big planner in all this. If I had to take a guess, who knows? Stephen Miller also comes to mind. He indicated that the U.S. could launch a second military incursion into Venezuela if Rodriguez stops cooperating with the U.S. So again, it's not about changing leadership, because, hey, as long as the remaining Maduro regime, the remaining Maduro government decides to play ball, then who cares, right? There's no need to change. But he said that he does not believe that it'll be necessary. Trump also suggested that he initially expected to have to send in American forces again already. We're prepared to do it. We anticipated doing it, actually. So that's, a peace president. What a peaceful president, you know. When I think peace, I think invading foreign countries and stealing their leaders and kidnapping their leaders in the dead of night. Yeah. Definition of peace, the peace president. This is absurd. This is absurd. I can't even I can't. There's no other commentary really much to say about any of this other than this is unprecedented. This sets a horrific precedent across the world. This basically, if there is any doubt that the United States is a rogue nation, well, that's all gone. Alliances are basically broken, essentially, because who would want to trust us? Who trusts us? Why would you trust a rogue United States? It really is, and the fact that they're so transparent about all of this, it kind of doesn't leave much room for commentary. Like, yeah, it's about the oil, and what? Yeah, we announced this to the oil companies before it happened, before Congress. Yeah, of course we lied to Congress about this not being about regime change and whatever. Like, I mean, sure, why not? You know, who cares? Who's going to stop us? Who is going to stop us? And I think that's kind of like fundamentally underneath all of this, underneath all of this is that question, right? Who is going to stop us? Is Trump going to get impeached and removed? No. Is the inner cabinet going to 25th Amendment him? No. There's people involved in the planning of this. They're on board with this because Trump serves as a vehicle for their agenda. Their agenda being doing things like this. This is the kind of stuff that would make even Henry Kissinger blush. I mean, like, I've never seen anything like this. Truly. Apart from being an unhinged maniac, I think Trump's okay. No. Trump also denied a Washington Post report that he dismissed the possibility of Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado running the country because she won the Nobel Peace Prize, an award long sought by Trump. She should not have won it, but no, that has nothing to do with my decision. Okay, so it 100% has to do with everything. Ro is so salty that she didn't let him have the Peace Prize. That's why she's not the leader of Venezuela. That's fantastic. China builds roads and bridges for developing nations around the world. Russia and the U.S. invade nations, and the U.S. ends USAID. Yeah,